And it's shadow bomb time. Look at how awkward this is. He's getting completely blocked that out. He's deciding to take storm damage. Mr. Savage! Oh no!
And he's on a killing spree!
And Savage takes out Trolix! This may be
Jumping double with this elimination! How about a second victory royale? Oh my god!
another one!
Oh, and a third! Then I got the quad literally putting on a clinic of why you need to pay attention.
What are you doing? 2 elims brings his team from 1 elim to 8, and the victory royale.
On September 29th of 2017, a user named SavageBoy88 logged into Fortnite for the first time ever. As a 13-year-old with an IQ of 156, SavageBoy88 is one of the most intelligent humans in the history of humanity. Now, I'm sure you've asked yourself before, what would happen if someone like Albert Einstein played video games professionally? And here's your answer. The story begins on July of 2017 when Epic Games would release what would soon become the highest skill cap game in all of esports. Just 1 month later, a user named SavageBoy88 would drop from the battle bus for the first time ever. But something about SavageBoy was different. He would improve at a rate that nobody could keep up with, instantly becoming one of the best players Fortnite had ever seen, or hadn't seen. Nobody knew of him. Without any leaderboards or tournaments, it was impossible to know who the real best players were. Now, instead of streaming and trying to build a name for himself, SavageBoy would just play for fun. It was clear that SavageBoy had no idea how quickly he was perfecting his gameplay. Without even knowing, SavageBoy was terrorizing pros, Twitch streamers, and anyone unlucky enough to be in the same game as him. It wasn't long before he started to get bored. Dropping 20 bombs in every game was getting repetitive. He needed a new challenge, and that's exactly what Fortnite gave him.
GG.
On September 26, 2017, Fortnite released duos and squads. Players could finally play Fortnite with their friends, but SavageBoy was excited for a different reason. A new challenge. The best players on Twitch could barely win a solo game, let alone with 20 kills. Nobody had even thought about trying to battle teams of 4 alone, except for Savage. And not only did he try it, but he did it, and he did it easily. Savage would drop 30 bombs in solo squads rapidly, hitting 1,000 wins in just 4 months. Fortnite was finally fun for him again, but somehow he still thought that he was just doing the same thing as everyone else. In February of 2018, SavageBoy would meet and play with a group of new friends, and little did they know, but they were about to witness who would soon be known as the Solo King. SavageBoy was making plays like nobody else was. They were speechless. They told Savage to start uploading his clips, and that's exactly what he did. In March of 2018, for the first time ever, Savage showed his gameplay to the public. He posted 4 21-second clips to YouTube in which he was carrying his teammates like a backpack. Savage was solo clutching every win and trickshotting his opponents, all while his dead teammates would watch in awe. But sadly, it was still clear that Savage didn't understand how good he truly was. He didn't take the game seriously at all. He had no idea that the players he was making memes of were at the time considered pros. Savage would go on to upload 2 new videos for his friends to watch, but his friends wanted more. They begged him to stream, and on May 11th, 2018, SavageBoy88 would change his name to Twitch MrSavage'm and go live for the first time ever. Throughout 3 hours, Savage would average 9 viewers, and that number only went up. Within just 6 months, he would reach 90 average viewers, and on November 18th, everything would change. Mongrel, aka the best player in the world, would notice MrSavage'm and asked to play a duo game with him on stream. It was in this game where Savage would do what he does best and solo carry his dead teammate to a win, all while dropping a 20 bomb. Each and every one of Mongrel's 8,000 viewers were mind blown. The next day when Savage started his stream, he was greeted with 5,000 viewers, and it was at this moment when Savage finally realized how good he truly was. 1 day later, Fortnite announced the first ever pop-up cup tournaments. Players from around the world could finally test and show off their skills. With Savage's new audience to impress, he knew it was time to grind. He immediately started streaming for up to 10 hours a day to show off his practice. It was in January 2019 when Epic Games would host the second ever solo pop-up cup tournament. It was during this tournament when a world record would be broken by a user named MrSavage'm. He would place first by a landslide. Everyone saw him at the top of the leaderboard and flocked to his stream. 10,000 viewers were watching him and everyone was talking about him. Savage was no longer playing for fun. He was playing to win. Nobody could edit, build, or aim like he could. With Savage's incredibly high mouse sensitivity, his movements were instant and somehow still accurate. But what was more surprising was how smart he was. Savage always knew exactly what his opponents were going to do and exactly when they were going to do it. It was obvious that the only thing on his mind was to win, and to win as hard as possible. Savage would memorize when and where each player on the map would run during games. This today is known as rotation. He was the first to pay attention to this, as it allowed him to get higher kill games, but in tournaments he would take it a step further. He would learn which players usually got snipers and would memorize their rotations. During certain times of the game, Savage would only fight in certain areas, but would fight anyone unlucky enough to walk through them. Savage did this to make sure that he never got sniped from across the map, and because of next level thinking like this, Savage continued to break point records, eventually becoming crowned as the most consistent solo player in all of Europe. His YouTube and Twitch viewership exploded. It wasn't long before Tier 1 pro teams were begging him to join their roster, and on January 31st, 2019, Savage would change his name to NRG MrSavage's. 2 weeks later, the $50 million Fortnite World Cup was announced. NRG would help make his thumbnails, edit his videos, and they would upload them to YouTube almost daily. All of this was so Savage could practice and prepare to qualify for the biggest tournament in the history of esports. Savage would soon be up against 40 million players who were willing to do anything to compete in New York for $50 million. Now, as much as Savage would improve, so would everybody else. People would quit their jobs and drop out of school. The ones improving the quickest were practicing over 16 hours a day. Savage was struggling to keep up. No matter how smart you are, if someone works harder, they will always come out on top. But Savage knew this, so he shut off his stream and disappeared. It's now Saturday, April 14th of 2019, and the first chance to qualify begins today. With 10 games and 3 hours to play them, 40 million players will compete, but only 0.0001% of them will actually reach that top 3,000 spot. The ones that do will move on to the final round, where they once again have 10 games and 3 hours to prove their worth, only this time it's much harder, as their new opponents consist of the fellow prodigies that just qualified with them. At the end of the 3 hours, the 8 best players will secure themselves $50,000 and a plane ticket to New York. After leaderboards on Saturday night were posted, everyone scrolled through, praying to see their name in the top 3,000. But no matter how much you scrolled, Savage was nowhere to be found. With week 1 complete, Savage only had 4 more chances that would only get harder as people continued to improve. Everyone was wondering what happened to Savage and where did he go? 2 weeks later, and the second chance at qualifying has begun. 40 million players are back once again after fixing their mistakes. Later that night, everyone scrambles to check the top 3,000, and this time, Savage made it. Placing 224th, his gameplay looked better than ever, but he was used to winning. New players had come out of nowhere, and they were smart. Really smart. As finals began the next day, Savage must place in the top 8. He must play out every single game and play it out flawlessly. But against these players, that felt impossible. Everyone else's gameplay is also flawless, but Savage had done what nobody else had. He memorized rotations better than anyone. He took this knowledge into his first qualifier finals, where he placed 24th. He did well, but he wasn't good enough. Players were really good. In the third of the 5 total weeks, Savage would once again get close, placing 54th. A mind-blowing performance, but once again, it's not good enough. With only 2 more attempts left, you could tell the stress was getting to him, because 1 week later, in week 4, Savage placed 959. Savage simply just couldn't outsmart the best of the best. With only 2 more weeks of practice before the final week of qualifiers, people were working harder than ever. The entire community was improving and improving rapidly. The smartest tips and tricks YouTube channels, including mine, exploded. As one of the few who were placing in that top 0.0001%, my tips were incredibly useful. The community would flock to learn every little secret that existed. But if Savage wanted to win, he needed to know every single tip on YouTube and then secretly find his own. Sadly though, YouTubers like me would watch and study the top players while they would practice in between qualifiers, and the second that I found them learning a new strategy, I would expose it to the world so that anyone could use it to their advantage. It's the last of the solo qualifiers. Savage has made it to the final round, and there's only a few minutes left. He's just outside the top 10. After almost 3 hours of playing as perfectly as possible, Savage is getting exhausted. This final game is the hardest. Everyone knows what's on the line. It's everyone's last chance to win a game and make it to the World Cup. There are 100 genius players, but only one can win, and it's not looking good for Savage. Not only does he need to win, but he needs 7 eliminations. Sadly, it's impossible to fight these players as they know every trick in the book. Everyone plays textbook perfect, like robots, except for Mr. Savage. Announcers were confused. Why would he bring a grenade launcher to endgame? The circle is too small. With players shoulder to shoulder, there's nowhere to use it. Millions were watching live as Fortnite pulled up Mr. Savage's screen for the final moments. All eyes were on Savage. With 4 eliminations so far, he might actually have a chance. But the endgame is about to start, and this is when it gets hard.
Make it work. He is so innovative, and he takes out Mitro. This is what I was talking about. That matters. Say it, Aqua! This game was stacked with players who were 100% in the running for qualification. He just took out Mitro and Aqua back to back, now top 4.
Folks, you might be witnessing live why Mr. Savage qualifies this week for a trip to the World Cup Finals in New York. I'm sorry for anything I said about the grenade launcher, because apparently he's using it perfectly and making me look like an idiot. Mr. Savage M. Building on up, 22 builds remaining. The spray comes in a 72 tag, another elimination. Now 8 elims this game. They've got to go up the side of a mountain, and it's shadow bomb time. Look at how awkward this is. He's getting completely blocked then out. He's deciding to take storm damage.
Yes.
Mr. Savage! Oh
No
my
way.
God!
You did not.
Oh my God! Oh my goodness!
What a play! Are
The
you
best shadow bomb use I've ever seen! Mr. Savage M rising to the top of the mountain like his plane will when this freak of nature probably goes to New York.
Let's check that out first, just because that was absolutely absurd coming out of Savage. So first, getting his angle there into the top 2, picking up the E-lip, and then all of a sudden doing his best GOAT impression, realizing he's blocked out, knowing the shadow bomb is running out, and he doesn't have.
After doing the impossible and qualifying for World Cup solos, Mr. Savage M would place 29th, but this was just the beginning. Mr. Savage wanted to be number 1, and nothing would get in the way of him achieving that. As he kept improving, his genius decision-making would lead himself and anyone on his team to thousands and thousands of dollars. Savage and his teammates would decimate lobbies, breaking point records and kill records, but to Savage, there was nothing quite like solos. It was the hardest game mode as you had to be good at everything. You didn't have teammates to rely on, nobody to build for you, make decisions for you, or even get kills for you. This forced Savage to innovate, and that's exactly what he did. As he invented new strategies and propelled them into the meta, Mr. Savage started topping leaderboards again. Starting in November of 2019, Savage would play every single tournament, and he would play them on 3 different servers. Now, because of the ping disadvantage, Savage could barely edit, build, or shoot his guns, while his opponents could do everything just fine. In his first solo Cash Cup on NA East, he placed top 200. Good, but Savage wanted to win. Savage was forced to predict his opponent's moves even earlier, and little did he know, but in doing so, he would once again invent an entire new meta. Suddenly, pro teams saw Mr. Savage's name at the top of leaderboards, but this time in every single region. After over 30 solo Cash Cups, Mr. Savage had developed skills that nobody else had. He was so good that he could shoot his opponents before he was even able to see them. This was the start of what we called the pre-fire meta. While averaging tens of thousands of viewers, Mr. Savage was picked up by 100 Thieves, as everyone was naming him the most consistent solo player in the world. His new playstyle was different from anything anyone had ever seen. He would no longer win fights by simply being faster than his opponents. Each of Savage's 1v1s were now thought out and precise. His ability to predict his opponents would somehow continue to get better and better. Over the next year, Mr. Savage would guide his teammates to over $150,000 in tournament earnings. Mr. Savage was a jack of all trades. His ability to play any role his team needed while also leading them would make Savage one of the richest pros in Fortnite. On May 30th of 2021, Savage would lead Refsguard and Andretta to the FNCS Grand Finals. It was during this tournament where Mr. Savage would once again amaze casters and viewers with a game-changing new meta, the pre-edit meta. Savage and his teammates would absolutely roll the FNCS Grand Finalists, winning themselves $210,000. The following season, top trios from around the world would try to adopt this new pre-edit meta into their own gameplay. Epic Whale and his trio were some of the first to perfect it, leading to their 4th FNCS win in a row. Over the next few months, Savage would use his strategies and fighting styles to win solo tournaments across all regions, earning himself more and more money. With a total of 273 Fortnite tournaments played, Savage has placed top 10 in 173 of those tournaments and won 40 of them. From dropping 30 bombs in solo squads to winning tournaments around the world, it's obvious to see that if Albert Einstein became an esports pro, he he would be known today as the Solo King. But what's even more obvious is that the support from you guys has been amazing. So for Christmas, I will be releasing one documentary for every 100 people that use code Exalted. Finally, I'd like to thank Daniil for the $10 donation. Support like this is the reason I can do what I love and make videos that you love too.